Welcome to the show. Ukraine's foreign minister is calling for a peace summit to be held at the end of February. And a viewer wrote, Dave Rubin credits you for your conversation being a turning point in his life, and this gives me hope. I will revisit that conversation. So, what can we expect in the coming year about the economy? Remember when the Biden administration said inflation was going to be transitory?
As our economy has come roaring back, we've seen some price increases. Some folks have raised worries that this could be a sign of persistent inflation. But that's not our view. Our experts believe, and the data shows, that most of the price increases we've seen were expected and are expected to be temporary.
Jen, we just heard you say again that you think inflation is going to be temporary. We've heard you say that it was going to be temporary since last spring. So how long do you guys think temporary is?
Well, again, Peter, I think what we do is we rely on the assessments of the Federal Reserve and of outside economic analysts who give an assessment of how long it will last. The expectations and their assessment at this point continues to be that it will moderate by the end of the year. There's also no question that when a foreign dictator invades a foreign country, and when that foreign dictator is the head of a country that is the third largest supplier of oil in the world, that is going to have an impact, and it is.
But it hasn't been transitory. It has been stubbornly persistent. It is still near a 40-year high. And now that Republicans have taken over the House, will there be a constraint on spending? What about interest rates? The Fed has raised interest rates 7 times this year. It hasn't raised interest rates this much in a single year since the 1980s. Then there's gasoline prices, where it looks like there might be at least some good news.
All right, so much for $5 a gallon gas. The average price of gasoline has fallen to its lowest level since June 2021. As our friend Liz Ann Saunders points out over at Schwab, gas prices aren't that far away from pre-pandemic peaks seen in 2018 and 2019.
And what about the prospect for a recession? Reuters recently wrote, while inflation is yet to be tamed, Wall Street's focus is shifting to the potential consequence of the Fed's rate hikes, a 2023 economic slowdown. Firms projecting at least a mild recession include BlackRock, the world's largest asset manager, Barclays, and Oxford Economics. Fund managers in a B of A global research survey named a deep global recession and persistently high inflation as the biggest market risks, with a net 68% forecasting a downturn as likely in the next year. Joining me to put all this in perspective is UCLA economist Lee Ohanian. Lee, what's in your crystal ball?
Hi, Larry.
Hi.
It was a difficult year for the U.S. economy in 2022, as you noted, and as you had predicted. Long before 2022, inflation was just an enormous problem for Americans. The CPI inflation hit a high that we have not seen literally for 40 years, since the early 1980s. Inflation rates of 7%, 8%, approaching 9% in some parts of the country. And interestingly enough, Larry, not all that long ago, I spoke with a Federal Reserve official who joked with me and said, I don't think we even know how to create inflation anymore.
Oh, wow.
Well, it turns out that the Fed knows how to create inflation. The Fed, along with the U.S. Treasury, by pumping trillions of dollars of federal support into the economy. So inflation is an enormous problem. As you noted, it's not going away. The Federal Reserve has got really far behind the curve. It's reacted very strongly in the last few months. Inflation probably will slow down at some point in 2023. It may not be before the summer. Prices continue to rise. When prices rise, interest rates also rise. So all of those remarkably low mortgage rates of 2020 and 2021, those are now gone. Home mortgage rates are up to 6%, 7% or more. So I'm looking for an economy that has continued high inflation, at least through the summer, and that has certainly slowing economic growth throughout 2023, because Fed policy is overhandedly going to be depressing the economy. And we're not returning workers back to the economy from the pandemic at the rate that which we should. There's a lot of people sitting at home not working, particularly younger people. So that's the economic backdrop we're looking at. It's not a particularly positive one.
The White House, of course, defends itself by saying, well, inflation is a world wide phenomenon, to which you say what?
Well, the inflation rates in other countries were not at the same level as we saw in the United States. We simply dumped far too much money into the U.S. economy. A lot of that came in the form of treasury checks being paid out to millions and millions of people. And that was the Biden plan to try to, quote, stimulate the U.S. economy. At a time when the economy was recovering from the pandemic, people were getting back to work. The unemployment rate was somewhere in the 4%, 4.5% range. And never in the history of the U.S. economy have we had an unemployment rate of 4.5%, where the federal government said, "Oh, we've got to spend $1.7 trillion to get this economy back on track." That was, in my opinion, simply irresponsible. And anytime you have a lot more money chasing roughly the same amount of goods, the only consequence of that is inflation. It's not rocket science. We've known this for thousands of years, and yet the administration is acting like it's not our fault. It's the fault of Putin. It's Russia and Ukraine. There's every other reason in the world why inflation has gone up. But at the end of the day, it always has to do with economic policy, always, every single time. And it would be refreshing if Washington, D.C. took accountability for this. But, I know you're not holding your breath on this, and neither am I.
11 million jobs supposedly are looking for workers. And we have people, as you pointed out, sitting at home making more money than they would be making if they had a job.
Yes, economic policy is not incentivizing enough work. And Larry, believe it or not, if you look at the number of people working today, and if you go back and look at the number of people working around 2000, 22, 23 years ago, the number of people under the age of 60 in the U.S. economy working today, there's fewer working today than there were in 2000. There are fewer. All the increase in jobs we've seen in the last 23 years have come from people over the age of 60 who are working longer. Some of that's because we have better medical technologies and people are healthier. But the people under the age of 60, all those young folks, those remarkable young folks, they are not working at nearly the same rates as they have at any time in the past. And it's a real cause for concern.
Lee, I'm looking at the House Republicans try to elect a speaker, and there are about 20 or so-called Freedom Caucus members of the Republican Party who don't want Kevin McCarthy. They believe that he is a tax and spender, that he's colluded with the Democrats. He's been in leadership for 14 years. He's grown the government. All of that is true. However, I don't see a real appetite on the part of Democrats, certainly, independents, certainly, and most Republicans to truly do what needs to be done about cutting spending. And those are, in my opinion, about two major things. Either refuse to sign onto a budget and shut down the government. And whenever you do that, voters blame the party they believe shut down the government. So they don't have the courage to do that. The other thing is an amendment to fix spending to a percentage of the GDP, with exceptions for war and for natural disaster. And I haven't heard a single major Republican leader even come close to proposing that.
Larry, it's what we're seeing now in terms of economic responsibility within the Beltway, broadly defined, is just abysmal. It's abysmal within the administration. It's abysmal within Congress. You hit the nail on the head when you said there's a bunch of people in Congress who are tax and spend, who are not reasonably incentivized to get the budget under control, because right now it's viewed as being political suicide. If you're not willing to sign on to the bill and shut down the government, that incurs a huge political cost. Years ago, I had some conversation with John Kasich, who, former governor of Ohio, who ran for president in 2016, and he said, I'm trying to get people upset about the size of the budget and the fact that we're profligate and the fact that we are not fiscally responsible. And he said, I can't get anybody to listen. And until voters demand fiscal responsibility, we're not going to get any. So it's deeply, deeply troubling. We have, I haven't checked the latest numbers, but I think we're probably close to 30 $30 trillion, perhaps more, in terms of federal debt, and that just continues to go up every day. And it's a shame, because we're saddling our kids and grandchildren and future generations with this enormous debt.